Good evening and welcome to my channel. China is feeding Iran real-time satellite tracking data, revealing exact positions of USS Gerald R. Ford and USS Abraham Lincoln, plus every deployed American fighter jet in Middle East theater. Real-time means live continuous updates showing American carriers as they move, F-35 and F-22 stealth fighters as they fly, B-2 bombers as they approach Iranian airspace. Beijing's BEIDOU navigation satellites are providing Tehran with targeting quality intelligence that allows Iran to shadow every move American forces make, eliminating element of surprise that modern warfare depends on. And simultaneously, Russia, China, and Iran just staged coordinated show of force near U.S. warships. As nuclear talks wrapped without agreement proving great power, alliance is actively monitoring, tracking, and potentially preparing to engage American military forces that Trump positioned for strikes. 150 U.S. aircraft have swept into Europe and Middle East in massive buildup, but every single one of those jets is being tracked by Chinese satellites feeding data to Iranian Revolutionary Guard, creating scenario where American advantage through technological superiority and overwhelming numbers gets negated by adversary intelligence that turns hunters into hunted. And Trump is reportedly frustrated with limits of military options because overwhelming force positioning has not produced Iranian surrender, while Chinese satellite spying and great power coordination have made American operational security impossible, creating conditions where war backfires before it even begins. Let me expose how Chinese satellite intelligence sharing with Iran has eliminated American tactical surprise, reveal why Russia-China-Iran show of force near U.S. warships proves coordinated opposition, and explain how tracking 150 American aircraft gives Tehran targeting advantage that makes Trump's military leverage useless. New intelligence confirms China is providing Tehran with continuous satellite feeds from Chinese reconnaissance satellites monitoring Middle East region. These are not occasional snapshots or delayed imagery. These are real-time video feeds showing American carrier movements, aircraft deployments, and military positioning as events occur. Chinese satellites include optical systems photographing ships and bases, radar satellites tracking movements through clouds and darkness, and signals intelligence satellites intercepting American military communications. Combined data from multiple satellite types creates comprehensive surveillance picture that Iran could never develop independently. BEIDOU navigation system is Chinese equivalent of American GPS, providing positioning accuracy to within meters. China sharing BEIDOU data with Iran allows Revolutionary Guard to track American forces using same precision navigation that U.S. military uses for its own operations. This creates parity in situational awareness that previously only America possessed. USS Gerald R. Ford is newest and largest American aircraft carrier, technological marvel representing peak of naval engineering. But Ford is also massive target that satellites can easily track from space. Carrier is 1,000 feet long, displacing 100,000 tons, making it impossible to hide from orbital surveillance. USS Abraham Lincoln is second carrier operating in region positioned in Gulf of Oman or nearby waters. Two carriers together provide approximately 140 combat aircraft, representing overwhelming air power that should dominate any regional adversary. But overwhelming power becomes liability when adversary knows exactly where carriers are located at all times. Iran shadowing every move means Revolutionary Guard commanders receive updates showing carrier positions updated continuously. Shadow implies following closely, observing actions, and preparing responses based on observed movements. Iranian military knows when carriers are launching aircraft, when they're refueling, when they're vulnerable during maintenance operations. F-35 Lightning II stealth fighters are designed to be invisible to radar through special shaping and coatings. But stealth doesn't work against satellites looking down from orbit photographing aircraft on runways or flying missions. Chinese satellites track F-35 deployments, revealing which bases host these aircraft and potentially even flight patterns during operations. F-22 Raptor air superiority fighters are America's most advanced and expensive combat aircraft, with capabilities exceeding any adversary platform. Only 180 F-22s were built, making each aircraft precious resource that cannot be easily replaced. 12 F-22s are deployed to Israel according to reports. Chinese satellites tracking these deployments inform Iran exactly where America's premier fighters are positioned. B-2 Spirit stealth bombers can strike targets anywhere on Earth from bases in United States or forward locations like Diego Garcia Island. These aircraft are designed for deep penetration strikes on heavily defended targets like Iranian nuclear facilities. But Chinese satellites tracking B-2 movements reveal deployment patterns and potentially even mission timing that Iranian air defenses can use to prepare intercepts. Deployed squadrons means not just individual aircraft, but entire units comprising dozens of fighters, plus support aircraft, maintenance personnel, weapons, and supplies. Chinese intelligence gathering extends beyond simple aircraft counting to comprehensive order of battle intelligence revealing American force structure, capabilities, and limitations. This intelligence sharing represents strategic decision by Beijing to actively undermine American military operations even without directly engaging U.S. forces. China providing targeting quality intelligence to Iran serves Chinese interests by imposing costs on American interventionism while maintaining plausible deniability about direct involvement. Iran, Russia, and China staging show of force near U.S. warships as nuclear talks wrapped proves coordinated opposition at operational level, not just diplomatic rhetoric. Show of force means deliberate military display designed to demonstrate capabilities and resolve. Near U.S. warships indicates these operations occurred in proximity to Ford and Lincoln carrier groups. Proximity creates potential for accidents, miscalculations, or deliberate provocations that could trigger wider conflict. Russian corvettes, Chinese destroyers, and Iranian fast attack boats operating near American carriers sends unmistakable message. You are not operating freely, we are watching, and we can engage if we choose. Nuclear talks wrapped without deal means diplomatic track failed to produce agreement preventing military confrontation. Wrapped suggests conclusion or termination, rather than pause for further negotiations. Without deal confirms no progress was achieved, making military option more likely as diplomatic alternatives are exhausted. Coordinated show of force reveals level of cooperation between Russia, China, and Iran that goes beyond weapons sales or diplomatic support. Coordinating naval operations requires communications, planning, and shared objectives that indicate genuine alliance rather than temporary alignment of interests. This is unprecedented since Cold War, where adversary alliance conducts military operations specifically targeting American forces positioned for strikes. Soviet Union supported various nations against America, but rarely conducted joint naval operations in immediate proximity to U.S. carrier groups during crisis periods. Over 150 U.S. aircraft swept into Europe and Middle East represents massive rapid deployment demonstrating American power projection capability. 150 aircraft is substantial force including fighters, bombers, tankers, reconnaissance platforms, and electronic warfare aircraft necessary for sustained operations. Sweep suggests rapid movement creating momentum and establishing overwhelming presence. Into Europe and Middle East indicates forces are distributed across multiple theaters rather than concentrated in single location. This creates flexibility, but also disperses assets, potentially making them easier for adversaries to track and target. Buildup comes after nuclear talks concluded without deal, proving Trump is positioning military option as talks fail. Buildup implies continuous accumulation of forces over time, creating pressure on Iran to accept diplomatic terms or face military consequences. Satellite images show American aircraft deployed near Tehran, though near is relative term given modern missile ranges and stealth aircraft capabilities. Iranian air defenses and intelligence services can observe these deployments through Chinese satellite feeds, creating no real surprise about American force positioning. But here's the critical problem that makes Trump's massive military buildup potentially counterproductive. Every one of those 150 aircraft is being tracked by Chinese satellites providing data to Iran. Revolutionary Guard commanders know which bases host American fighters, how many aircraft are deployed, what types of missions they're flying, and potentially even maintenance schedules, reducing operational readiness. This transforms American advantage through overwhelming numbers into disadvantage, where Iran possesses intelligence allowing precise targeting of American assets. Iranian missiles could strike air bases hosting American fighters. Cyber attacks could disrupt communications coordinating those aircraft. Air defenses could pre-position based on observed flight patterns, creating ambushes, rather than being surprised by American strikes. Intelligence advantage often matters more than numerical advantage. Iran, with perfect knowledge of American force positions, can optimize defensive preparations, while U.S. forces operating blind to Iranian counter-preparations face unexpected resistance and casualties. Trump is frustrated with limits of military options, according to multiple reports. Frustrated implies President expected overwhelming military positioning would force Iranian capitulation, but Tehran has not surrendered despite massive American force buildup surrounding their territory. Limits of military options means there are constraints on what military force can achieve. Even overwhelming American superiority cannot guarantee swift victory or acceptable costs when adversary possesses intelligence advantages, great power backing, and willingness to absorb punishment while inflicting casualties through asymmetric responses. President is reportedly basing strike decision on Kushner and WITKOFF's assessments of Tehran's intentions after Thursday talks rather than military professionals. This is extraordinary delegation of critical military decision to political advisors lacking defense expertise. WITKOFF is real estate investor. Kushner is political operative. Neither possesses background in military strategy, weapons effects, casualty projections, or operational planning. Basing strike decision on their assessments rather than chairman of Joint Chiefs or CENTCOM commander reveals Trump's distrust of military professionals who may be providing cautions advice about operation risks that President doesn't want to hear. Political advisors can tell Trump what he wants to hear, while military officers must provide honest assessments even when unwelcome. This creates dangerous scenario where strikes proceed based on political judgment about Iranian intentions rather than military readiness, operational security, or achievable objectives. If Kushner and WITKOFF conclude Iran is not serious about negotiations, Trump may order operations despite intelligence compromises and great power opposition that military professionals understand create unacceptable risks. Iranians worry over U.S. military buildup amid last-chance talks, showing population anxiety about imminent conflict. Worry indicates genuine fear among civilians who understand they will bear consequences if war begins. Last-chance talks suggest diplomatic window is closing with military action becoming inevitable if current negotiations fail. Iranian population anxiety serves regime interests by demonstrating to international community that Tehran is victim of American aggression facing unprovoked attack. But anxiety is genuine, reflecting understanding that American military power can inflict devastating damage on Iranian infrastructure, economy, and society. War backfires on Trump in multiple ways that undermine strategy he expected to succeed. First, massive military buildup has not forced Iranian surrender, proving that displays of overwhelming power don't automatically achieve political objectives when adversaries are willing to resist. Second, Chinese satellite intelligence sharing with Iran has eliminated tactical surprise that American operational planning assumed would exist. Every movement of carriers, every deployment of aircraft, every preparation for strikes is observed by Chinese satellites and reported to Revolutionary Guard, creating transparency that benefits defender while disadvantaging attacker. Third, Russia-China-Iran coordination demonstrated through show of force near U.S. warships proves Trump is not just fighting Iran, but facing great power alliance that can support Tehran through intelligence, weapons, and potentially direct military intervention if American operations threaten Chinese or Russian interests. Fourth, 150 American aircraft deployed to region become targets rather than assets when adversary knows exact locations and can prepare countermeasures. Concentration of forces that should represent overwhelming advantage becomes vulnerability when intelligence allows adversary to optimize attacks. Fifth, Trump's frustration with military options reveals presidential expectations were unrealistic. Overwhelming military superiority doesn't translate automatically into swift victory at acceptable costs when adversaries possess intelligence advantages, asymmetric capabilities, and willingness to endure punishment while inflicting casualties. Military frustrated reflects professional officers' understanding that operational security has been compromised, strategic surprise is impossible, and adversary possesses intelligence advantages that fundamentally alter risk calculations. Frustration comes from knowing that political leadership expects results that military reality cannot deliver, given intelligence compromises and great power opposition. Satellite tracking of Ford and Lincoln carriers means Iranian anti-ship missiles can be pre-positioned for optimal launch points. Chinese CM-302 supersonic missiles that Iran is acquiring become far more dangerous when Iranian forces know exact carrier locations and can calculate ideal attack vectors. Tracking F-35 and F-22 deployments reveals American air superiority force structure, allowing Iranian air defenses to prioritize threats and allocate resources effectively. Knowing which bases host stealth fighters helps Iran position air defenses for maximum effectiveness against most dangerous American platforms. B-2 bomber tracking could reveal mission patterns, allowing Iranian defenses to predict attack timing and pre-position interceptors or air defense systems for ambush scenarios that negate stealth advantages through preparation based on observed patterns. BEIDOU navigation data sharing means Iran possesses same precision positioning that American military uses. This parity in navigation capability eliminates technological advantage that U.S. forces traditionally exploit. Iranian missiles can be as precisely targeted as American weapons when both sides possess equivalent navigation accuracy. Real-time intelligence creates compression of decision cycles, where Iranian commanders can observe American movements and respond almost instantaneously, rather than relying on delayed intelligence that allows targets to move before attacks occur. Real-time intelligence transforms static defense into dynamic response optimized moment by moment based on current situation. Russia-China-Iran alliance coordination goes beyond diplomatic support to operational military cooperation. This is genuine alliance conducting joint operations, sharing intelligence, and preparing coordinated responses to American military actions. Historical parallel is Warsaw Pact coordination against NATO during Cold War, where Soviet bloc shared intelligence and planned joint operations against Western forces. Show of force near U.S. warships tests American responses, demonstrates resolve, and communicates capability to engage if conflict erupts. Proximity operations create psychological pressure on American commanders who must maintain vigilance against potential adversary actions while conducting normal operations. Nuclear talks failing combined with military buildup proves diplomatic track has been exhausted, making military option more likely. But military option that should represent overwhelming American advantage has been compromised by intelligence sharing that eliminates surprise and great power coordination that threatens wider conflict. 150 aircraft tracked individually by Chinese satellites and reported to Iran creates targeting list rather than threat demonstration. Every aircraft becomes potential target for Iranian missiles, cyber attacks, or sabotage operations that Chinese and Russian intelligence can help plan and execute. Trump's frustration with military limits reveals dangerous disconnect between political expectations and operational reality. President assumed overwhelming force would compel surrender. Military professionals understand that force without surprise, without intelligence advantage, and against adversary with great power backing cannot achieve swift victory at acceptable costs. Kushner and WITKOFF assessing Iranian intentions rather than military professionals evaluating operational readiness proves strike decision may proceed based on political judgment, that diplomatic track has failed, rather than military judgment that operations can succeed despite intelligence compromises. War backfires before it begins because Chinese satellite tracking, Russian-China-Iran coordination, and 150 aircraft all being monitored creates scenario where American advantages get negated by adversary intelligence, while risks increase through great power involvement and compromised operational security. USS Ford and Lincoln being shadowed continuously. F-35, F-22, B-2 tracked by Chinese satellites. 150 aircraft targeted by intelligence shared with Iran. Russia-China-Iran show of force near U.S. warships. And Trump frustrated with military options that should work but don't, when adversary possesses intelligence advantages that eliminate tactical surprise required for swift victory.
This is war backfiring, where massive American military buildup creates targets rather than overwhelming advantage, where Chinese intelligence sharing transforms American strength into vulnerability, and where great power coordination makes regional operation into potential World War III through alliance structures specifically designed to oppose American military intervention.